Today I would like to talk with you about the topic of envy among musicians. Why we should support each other and why sometimes we might not do so. Why does envy arise? Envy is often a feeling that arises when we compare ourselves to others, or especially when we compare ourselves to others. And this happens constantly in the music scene, of course. It's when you audition for a band, when you listen to a concert, when you visit other musicians. And where does this feeling of envy come from? Perhaps on one hand, because the other musician or band gets more attention, maybe plays a cooler gig, has more followers on social media, or if someone plays technically better than you do. This has actually happened to me very often because, as I've said many times, I'm not the great classical technical player. I'm simply missing a lot in that area. I manage well, I can achieve everything through practice, but I often think, wow, they're good and play really great. And how amazing it would be if I could play like that myself. But that's actually my problem, and not that of the other musicians. And it would be somewhat unfair to blame them for this mistake. Regarding envy, as it sometimes happens, hopefully we'll touch on that again shortly if I remember. This condition that one has, for example, not playing as often, or perhaps not being as technically skilled, is usually one's own doing. And maybe one can do other things better. For example, I'm not much of a hero when it comes to playing, as I said, but my sounds are apparently quite good. At least that's what the sales indicate. Or when someone asks me if they can have the sound or if I can program something. So it seems I'm doing that quite well. That means my strength is clearly better in another area. How does envy often manifest? Most of the time, it's by speaking poorly about other musicians. I actually don't encounter that very often in my environment. With certain individuals, it's more frequent, and I can't understand why. So for me, it's mostly just hearsay, and the people haven't even had proper contact with each other, yet they still speak negatively about someone. The successes of other colleagues are downplayed. If you regularly play at a big city festival, then you're doing something right, I would say. If you're always playing at 8 p.m., always have a full house, the marketplace is packed, then you can't say, well, the band is this or the musician is that. It's just something, whether you want it yourself or not, that's just how it is. And sometimes there is an attempt to deliberately put pressure on the musicians, as I have already mentioned, by speaking poorly about these people and intentionally speaking badly to certain individuals. And usually this is not only bad for the other person, but also bad for oneself. Because firstly, you get a bad reputation, and secondly, you wonder why that is. I actually don't experience this as often about myself, maybe due to my quality, I don't know. The only thing that, for example, annoys me or makes me wonder what's the point are negative comments under the videos. If someone criticizes me and says, you need to improve this and that, that's all fine. But it's also regularly the case that if I don't play a voicing correctly, it says underneath, yes, but that's not right. And in the rarest cases, does it say how to do it better? Guys, it would be great if you could then tell me what I need to improve. I never claim that I can do everything really well, but it would be nice if you just gave me the tip, instead of just saying, yes, that's not right. Or if someone doesn't like the sound, then they just write, I simply don't like it. And if someone writes doesn't fit, how about simply providing an explanation of what doesn't fit? And also there, I program my sounds to fit into this overall picture. I never say that my sounds are true to the original, but I make them so that they fit for me in the band. And if they also fit for someone else, then that makes me happy, then that's good. How can we generally handle this better? Well, first of all, I don't think envy is bad. It's okay. I'll just say, for example, Alois Müller, I don't know who knows him. I'll link him up here in the corner. I'm envious of him. Why? Because he simply has time, because he can play really well, and because he is currently very successful on YouTube and otherwise with his music stuff. But he has earned it, he has worked hard for a long time, practiced a lot, and invested a great deal of time, money, and certainly sacrifices a lot to achieve this goal he is pursuing. And I see that only positively. So for me, it's not negative envy because I wouldn't speak badly about him. I no longer know him personally, unfortunately. I hope that changes someday. I believe he is a very sociable, nice person. But what he is doing is simply inspiring to me. I try to see it as inspiration and think, hey, you want to get there too, you want to take that step as well. And I feel the same way with some keyboard colleagues in my circle where I think, well, I just need to sit down and practice. And last night I actually sat down and practiced for an hour again. We can also talk about the topic of practicing or quality, what I can and cannot do. Maybe I'll write a community post about it. Then you can vote on it again. And yes, the next step might simply be to see this inspiration and define your own goals. Where do I really want to go? Do I even want to go where the other person is? Playing these big performances naturally also means you have to play more often. Can I even do that? Do I even want to do that? And then it's about getting in touch with these people and just understanding, because then you slip into such a circle faster than you slip out. If I speak negatively about these people, then I won't get into this group. And not only do the other musicians notice that, but it also gets around. And eventually, the audience picks up on it too. Helping is better in that situation than seeing the negative or letting it destroy you. I just told you how I see it, for example, with Alois Müller. He's a prominent example for me right now because I really enjoy watching his videos. And yes, what did I just say? I think envy is not a terrible feeling. So it's quite normal at first. It happens, it's human, and you always have to consider where it comes from and what you do with it. How do I deal with it? What I just explained, I don't know. Do you have that? Maybe you've experienced that too. You could share something about it. I would be happy to receive a few comments, or if you have negative and positive examples. For example, my positive example is Andre. I just mentioned the name earlier. He lives around the corner from me. We somehow rarely met here in Herdecke and got to know each other very, very late, even though we've lived here for a very, very long time. But for me, that's always a positive example, and I'm always happy when I can say, hey, I know Andre, I've seen him play, and I know him, he knows me, and I can always highlight him as a positive example, and that makes me happy too. I don't say, yeah, no, I can do it much better or anything like that, but for me, it's clear that if something good comes along and someone is there, I wouldn't push myself forward because I know exactly that I might not be able to achieve what he can achieve. So now I've talked a lot. I hope there was something in there that resonated with you in some way. I believe there's a lot more to talk about, especially about these negative aspects, when people put each other down or when the musician police stand in front of the stage and start saying, yeah, that wasn't so good, that wasn't so good, that wasn't so good. But even this criticism, it can be packaged positively and shown, hey, this is only indirectly related to the topic of envy. But somehow I find criticism and envy to be very, very connected, because often it's the case that people criticize a lot because they might wish to be on that stage where the other person is.